Hello, this is Mrs. Raro, and in this video, you're going to learn how to add and subtract radical expressions. Okay, so this is addition and subtraction of radical expressions. Okay, so let's begin. So let's say, for example, this was your problem and you needed to express this in simplest radical form. So the one rule of thumb you have to remember with adding and subtracting is like radical terms, right? So like radical terms can be combined. Unlike radical terms cannot be combined. So like radical terms are terms that have the same radicand and that also has the same index. So for example, if you have the square root of 5x plus 3 of these square roots of 5x's, they have the same exact index. So the index here is 2, and they have the same exact radicand, which is 5x and 5x. So therefore, when they have and they are like, you can add the coefficients. So the coefficient of the first term is 1, the coefficient of the second term is 3, so therefore there are 4 of these square roots of 5x's. All right, so that would be like your final answer. Okay. Unlike radical terms, all right, so unlike cannot be combined. So for example, if you had the square root of 5x plus the cube root of 5x, you can't combine these as 2 of the square roots of 5x. So this is its simplest term already because of the fact that they don't have the same exact index. All right, so that's an example. Another example would be, say, the square root of 5x plus the square root of 3x. You still can't combine these because they don't have the same radicand. All right, so you can only combine if you have the same index and the same radicand. All right, so let me clear this up. So as you can see here, the square root of 98x and then the square root of 162x cubed obviously don't have the same radicand. Initially, at least, it doesn't. But this just means that you have to break it down further. So maybe there is something that they have like it or something in common. So we're going to break this down as my step 1. On the first term, I'm going to break down the square root of 98. Let me erase that. So this is the square root of 98, and then we can leave the square root of x, okay? And then we'll leave this out here too. All right, so ultimately this is what it looks like. And then so we want to break down the square root of 98 because it can. The square root of 98 can be broken down to the square root of 49, which is a perfect square, times the square root of 2. And then the square root of 49 is a 7, and then the square root of 2 cannot be broken down anymore. So ultimately, we can bring together our new coefficients and then our new radicands together. So our coefficients here are x, that's a coefficient, and 7. All right, so then together that makes 7x. Let me highlight that yellow. And then what's under our radical is going to be in black. So it's going to be in green, highlighted. So this is what's underneath the radical, and also this. So together makes the new radicand, and the new radicand is the square root of 2x. All right, so ultimately what this x square root of 98x is equivalent to 7x times 2x. All right, so I'm going to do the same exact thing here. So I'm going to break down, we have a minus 6. I'm just going to bring this down. So we have a 6 here, and then square root of 162. And then the square root of x cubed, which can be broken down a lot more. So the square root of 162 can be broken down to the square root of, could be divided by 81. So 81, and then if you divide 162 divided by 81, you'll get 2. All right, so then I can break this down even more to 9 square root of 2. All right, now my x cubed, I'm going to make that into x to the 3/2, which actually is equivalent to x to the first power times x to the 1/2 power, which is the same thing as x square root of x. Okay, so now that I've broken down my terms, I'm going to highlight in yellow my new coefficient, which is 6, and a 9, and an x. So 6 times 9 is 54, so that's minus, minus 54. And then I'm going to bring down the x. And then square root, that's my new, I'm going to highlight yellow, so that's my new coefficient. And then square roots are going to be in green. So this is underneath the square root and this is underneath the square. So the new radicand would be 2x. And so now you kind of realize that after you simplified both terms all the way down to its most simplified radicand, you'll notice that the radicand and the index are the same. Okay, so you have the square root of 2x, and then you can move forward to combining what you have as far as your coefficients are concerned. So your new coefficients are 7x minus 54x, which is negative 47x. So again, together I'm going to highlight that as yellow so that you understand they combine. And then my new radicand, which is the square root of 2x. So altogether, this would be its simplest form, negative 47x square root of 2x. Okay? All right, so let's try this one. So again, pause this video and see if you could do this on your own. And then unpause it when you're ready to see the solution. Okay, so again, we'll do the same exact step. We will bring this down, which is my coefficient, break down my square root of 90 and break down my x to the 5th power, right? So my square root of 90 is square root of 9 and square root of 10. The square root of 9 is a whole number 3 and then square root of 10, okay? The square root of x to the 5th power is x to the power of 5 halves, which gets broken down to x squared and then square root of x. Right, let me show you the step in between that. So 5 halves is a mixed number of 2.5, so that's why it is 2 and then a half. So that's why x squared is the new coefficient, and then the square root of x is going to be your radicand. And then so together in yellow, I will highlight the new coefficient. So that's negative 8, and then there's a 3 there, and then there's an x squared there. So all together, if I multiply them, that would become negative 24x squared. And then what's underneath the radical symbol are all together the square root of 10 and square root of x. So the square root of 10x is what it comes down to, okay? All right, so now the next one, this gets broken down into negative 3x, or this, I'm just going to bring it down, 3x, and then the square root of 10, and then the square root of x cubed. All right, so the square root of 10 doesn't get broken down anymore, but I can still break down the square root of x cubed. So this becomes to the power of 3 halves, which as a mixed number, it's x to the 1st power and x to the 1/2 power, which then gets broken down to x and then square root of x. Okay, so the same idea, I'm going to highlight my coefficients, which is 3x, and then here's another x. Together, if I multiply that, that becomes 3x squared. All right, and then again, underneath the radical would be, or my new radicand is going to be 10x. All right, so now it's making sense. Now we have the square root of 10x as a common radical expression here and here. So now we can combine them together. So I have negative 24x squared minus 3x squared together makes negative 27x squared when I combine my coefficients together. And then we have the square root of 10x, something that's common between the two. All right, so that's my final answer. All right, awesome. We're moving forward to our last example. And then, so let's see if you could do this one on your own. Oops, sorry. Okay, so let's identify what we need to break down. So negative 7x can stay, the square root of 125, and then the square root of x. So the square root of 125, I'm going to do this much faster. So it comes from the square root of 25 times 5, which is equivalent to 5 square root of 5. Okay, oh, sorry. And then this doesn't get broken down, and this doesn't get broken down anymore. Now I'm going to highlight my new coefficient, which is negative 7x and a 5. So together that would make negative 35x as my new coefficient. And then my radicand is 5x. All right, so here I'm going to separate my square root of 5 and then separate my square root of x cubed. Again, x cubed gets broken down into x, and then the power there is 3 halves, which gets broken down to a mixed number of 1 and 1/2, which gets broken down to x, and then square root of x. All right, so now I'm going to highlight my new coefficients, which is 10 and x. So that's 10x, positive because I'm adding. And then my new radicand, I'm going to highlight in green. So 5 is a radicand and x is a radicand. So 5x is my new radicand. So square root of 5x. And as you can see, they're both the square root of 5x's. So now I can combine my coefficients. So negative 35x plus 10x becomes negative 25x. And then my radicand is 5x. Okay, and then that is it. Thank you for watching.